Hey everyone, just here to talk a little bit about Halloween, and with Halloween we have Halloween comics. So the great thing is that you can buy comics instead of candy for the kiddies out there. You know, stop rotting their teeth.
Stop
you know?
feeding into the childhood obesity epidemic.
Exactly, exactly. Feed their minds. Get them to read a book, right? It's so impossible, right? Oh gosh, the summer reading list, that went over well, right? No, they'll be all over this, trust us. So buy these right here, pack of 25, $4.99, and you can be handing out some really cool stuff to kids that will kind of throw them off, and I don't know, the real treat will be in their bag, for sure.
What are you doing with yours,
So,
Tyler?
I don't know what Tyler's...
Doing thigh pads.
I'm trying to help
Tyler's...
the kids not stay fat.
Tyler's got a five-finger discount going over there.
He's into these.
All right. So anyway, these are available at the store, your local comic shop, if you're not local to Uxbridge. But if you are, come by the shop here, right here in Uxbridge, Mass. Great stories, and we'd be happy to help you out. Thank you so much.
Tyler's in. He's ready for Halloween. No one's egging your house.
Welcome to another edition of Comic Shop Talk. Here we are, three-man crew. We got Ken Lee in the middle, Crankfile. We got Tylor Hamel, and yours truly, Chris Mills. So welcome back, and this is a special Halloween edition. So we'll tell you what that all means soon. But first, we're gonna get started right away into a little bit of DC Universe stuff.
I like how you gave me a title of Crankfile and everyone else gets that. That's cool.
Well, you're kind of like in the middle. You're the focus of this, right? Don't you like that? Just Ken's slipping under the table right now. Not good.
And losing his mic. We're going to start with something that we talked about last week, and that is DC's Heroes in Crisis.
I like this.
Written by Tom, the brilliant Tom King, and artwork by the amazing Alex Maleev.
Yes.
Gorgeous book.
Yes.
First off, the artwork in this book was phenomenal.
It's a little ironic because DC's been in crisis for a long time.
And now the heroes have finally caught up, and now they are firmly in crisis.
Sorry, that was funny.
It's a good one, Tyler. I like that. That's a good one.
Right
Okay.
off the bat.
All right. A2 Brute.
So we talked about this a little bit last month, and the general premise of the story is that Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman create this sanctuary out in the middle of this kind of rural nowhere, a little farmhouse. And it's supposed to be a place where superheroes can come and heal from the PTSD that just comes along with fighting crime and just dealing with these crazy, just violent events in their day-to-day lives. And it was teased that people were going to die in this issue, and we got some pretty significant deaths right off the bat. Now, the first one, we get this scene where Superman comes flying into the sanctuary and is just a slaughter, right? And just people, bodies laying everywhere.
Yep.
And the first person of note that dies is a character Hotspot, which we're all kind of like, we don't really care, right?
Who's that?
Who's that? No one cares. But then you turn a couple pages and you get inside the house, and the real payoff happens, and we see the deaths of Roy Harper, Arsenal, and Wally West, the Flash.
Yep.
And these are two.
Didn't we also lose DC's Ant-Man? What was his name?
Blue something.
Blue Jay?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Blue Jay.
Yeah. So I kind of thought that this was what was going to happen, that they would kill a bunch of just like B-list heroes.
Yeah, but then they come out and they gank the Flash.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa, I mean, Wally West has been around since, I don't know, like the 60s?
I think they're setting a precedent outright that nobody's safe.
Yeah, I like that.
That's right.
But I mean, also, it is comics, so, it's inevitable that at some point...
Plus, how many times has Flash died?
Right. So, I mean, it's probably not permanent, but it's still pretty shocking.
We're going to get a flashback? Oh, okay.
All right.
I owe the pun jar again.
I'm here. I'm leaving this panel.
Come on, man. They're a children. We want
Perfect.
treats this year, not
Perfect.
bad
Okay.
puns.
Wait, do I even have the money for it? I'm going to have to put $1 in. I probably owe it that much anyway. So there we go.
It's pretty rough.
There you go, production girl. You can take the pun jar back now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we gotta call her by. Yeah, I gotta call Hallie by her name. Just gotta call her production girl.
Well,
She's not even production girl.
Phil was peanut gallery / production guy, so we have to have.
Peanut gallery.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Yes.
the thing that we didn't know before, that we didn't talk about last month, obviously, because we hadn't read it, was who the killer or killers,
Right.
supposed killers were.
Yes.
So
they kick it off painting this image that perhaps it's Harley Quinn that's kind of going on this rampage.
right, and so there's two characters in the beginning, and it's her and Booster Gold.
Yep.
Very nicely done. I love the setup to the scene. I love the whole idea that you're in, like, basically, it's Americana. You know, like
Diner,
you're in a diner in
yeah.
the middle of America.
Yeah.
Here, you know, where nothing bad ever happens,
And
right?
fresh
And
peach pie.
and fresh
yeah,
peach
yeah,
pie.
I love that. I love those little
Very
little,
cliche yet so true.
yeah.
Yep. And Booster Gold is there, minding his own business, just having a meal,
Getting some
And then-
coffee.
getting some coffee, and look who arrives, Trouble.
Harley Quinn walks in through the door, and she's they're both looking a little bit banged up,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and
She's all cut up.
yep,
I
they're
noticed the, yeah. So
they look like they've been in battle.
Yep.
And Booster asks her just flat out, "Are we gonna fight?" She's like, "Yep, we're gonna fight."
And it's pretty interesting because they draw it out through the course of the entire book, little by little, while you get a couple flashbacks. You get a little dialogue between Supes and Wonder Woman. Batman's there, but he's not really saying all that much as he does. And you paint this whole picture, or you get this picture painted for you, that Harley might have been the one who started the slaying in Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And Booster Gold is the next one on her hit list, having tried to get away from her. But that's not exactly the hint that we're getting at the end of the issue, is it?
the little curveball.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
Would you? Go ahead.
You
I'll let
do-
you. I'll let you.
Well, you know, Harley lets a little nugget fly when they're basically at near the end of their fight. They've taken elevation. Booster Gold has basically whipped both of them through the roof of this diner, which is completely cleared out now, vacated because of their fight. Where Harley got really made good use of the silverware in the diner, and you know, and they go through the roof and taking elevation. You're thinking, oh my gosh,
Harley can't fly.
Harley can't fly. So you know, you're thinking maybe this is it. Like Booster Gold's gonna take out the bad guy, right? And because Booster's playing the role of like the noble hero with the words,
As he normally often does. You know, the
like,
well-intentioned, perhaps not always doing the right thing, but his heart's usually in the right place.
Exactly, like pleading for her to just stop her, you know, her rampage and, you know, stop doing this. And, you know, and they finally, the next panel, they're both like sitting in a field, and Booster Gold has taken, I think, a throat shot.
Yeah.
You know, where it's looking like maybe he got a mortal wound. You never know. And Harley's looking a little worse for wear. She's leaning against a fence, and there they are talking to each other, and so Booster Gold says something to the effect of,
"Why'd you kill
them? Why did you kill them?" And she's like, "I didn't. You did."
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, "What? Like, Booster Gold was the bad guy this whole time, like through this fight?" Is that true? We don't know yet, right?
I mean, this is
But
Harley Quinn, not exactly the most reliable of all, you know, narrators.
Not playing with a full deck, you know. She had some great lines in this, by the way, about the whole. I used to believe, everyone believes that there's like trauma, but there is no trauma, you know.
Oh wow.
And everything. There was some really good lines in this, like deep, you know. I don't know. It was like.
There were so many good lines.
I mean, they paint her, you know, to be the crazy Harley we all know.
She really comes off psychotic.
She comes off completely psychotic. So you're like, you're not even seeing this kind of like potential curveball at the end, you know. And
I just wanted to. Oh God, there's this one line that Batman had that was amazing. So this is after Batman, Wonder Woman, Supes have gone to the Sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
They see all the dead bodies, and they realize somebody that was at Sanctuary had to have been the killer. So that would mean someone's in the midst had betrayed them, and now they have to go find him, obviously, because they got to make this right.
That's right.
And what Batman realizes is that the whole purpose of Sanctuary is kind of get away from that world. So his line is, so it means what we already know it means, what it always means. Our hope for redemption is just now another hunt for vengeance.
Yep.
That's deep, man.
Yep. Poignant.
That's good stuff. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really just fantastic
Yeah,
writing.
they did a good job.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't disappointed with the last issue either. Well, this is issue number 1, but that was issue 0, where they introduced the crisis concept.
I did. I also like the way that they formatted this book, right? Because it was you had the story between Booster and Harley. You had the Trinity, and then you also had these one panels, which was almost like confessionals, where it showed the people that were residing in Sanctuary.
Yes.
They're almost like they're doing just an interview before they go in, talking about their trauma, why they're there, and why they need to get help.
Very revealing.
It was very intimate, all of it.
Yeah.
Yep. Arsenal's comment about basically not being superpowered, trying to fight the vigilantes fight, without the superpowers, and how you needed a little something because at the end of the night you just couldn't handle the pain that your body was, that was inflicted upon your body.
Yep.
So what do? And so I got a buddy who's a pharmacist, not really a pharmacist, but and that kind of stuff, and about how it graduated from prescription
Legitimate
meds,
drugs.
legitimate drugs, to then it's like, oh, it's damaging my liver, so I went right to the needle. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I was kind of reading that and cringing. I was like, oh my gosh, Plus it's cheaper. It's cheaper to get the heroin. It's like, wow, this is
It's not
pretty heavy. This is like the dark, gritty underbelly of fighting crime type of thing. And you really see the flaws in the characters. And,
it's definitely something you can't do all the time, but I like it when they do it occasionally and they get the right creative team to do it, because it elevates what comics can do and the kind of stories it can tell from beyond just being, just bam, justice.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you're seeing all of it. It's like there's nothing black and white. There's so many areas of gray in between, and you're seeing all that through a story like this, which is kind of cool.
Yep, I'm digging it.
I like it. So DC, well done. You got me hooked completely.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
DC's been in crisis for a while.
So we might as well just stop the show at this point. That's a topper.
See y'all next time.
Well, okay. Well, we can move on. We'll move on to Marvel then.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We'll give DC that.
Greener Marvel pastures.
Nothing
We'll get out of the
to
rain
complain
for a
about.
bit, so to speak.
Yeah.
into Marvel land.
So we'll talk
Happy,
about
shiny.
another title that. It's got Happy Shiny Marvel.
Yeah, speaking of happy and shiny, Venom.
Yeah, Venom, totally.
I mean, look how happy that guy looks. I mean, look at it. That's a killer with a smile.
He does look pretty excited to be there.
He looks pretty happy. He looks
He
happy
does.
to be shooting these guns up.
He does.
So we talked about Venom last month as well,
We did.
and
we
we
did.
dabbled upon the symbiote god Null and this Rex Strickland, this other
Yes.
symbiote, and
We've
how
been posing as a SHIELD agent for a
Yes.
while. Yep.
and last issue ended with them merging together to get together and fight Null.
Mm-hmm.
And that all goes down in this issue, and it is friggin' insane.
Yeah.
The action and the artwork I felt were outstanding. There was just so much just violence and crazy, insane alien stuff happening.
Yep.
There's no pause in it.
Yeah, it's all go the entire time. I had a bit of a hard time keeping up with who was talking.
Yeah, he was doing
So
the
many
inner monologue.
voices, and they do their best to try to identify specific characters using different speech bubbles. But,
Yeah, the coloring.
yeah.
Yeah, I find myself kind of drifting. Oh wait, no, that was him. Oh, that was him. Okay.
But who's he speaking to? That was the part that was confusing me.
Yeah.
Not who was speaking, but who is he addressing?
So
Is it Brock's symbiote talking to Rex? Is it Rex talking to Eddie Brock? Is it that's what
okay,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
right, because there's 3 guys inside this guy's head at this point.
Exactly.
It's Eddie's own thoughts, and then these 2 other the symbiotes' thoughts are in his head.
Yep.
Which that got pretty confusing. I just assumed it was like everybody's addressing Eddie, Eddie's addressing the other 2.
Right.
That's the way I read it.
It's like reading a Deadpool comic except without the humor.
Yeah.
More or less.
Well,
Yeah, it wasn't that funny.
No, it was not funny at all. But the weight of the story and the whole the attachment of the symbiote to Eddie Brock, the loyalty it feels to him. You really feel the weight of that relationship. You know, and how much they care.
Yeah, there's definitely like it's beyond just like, hey, we're bonded. There's beyond affection. Like, they love each other.
Yeah.
They totally do.
It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful thing.
Yep.
They fully understand each other, and they make each other better.
Yes, they do.
And it's kind of beautiful in that way. And it was really sad the way that this whole arc ended. And I was not at all ready for the way it ended.
Yeah, that was
Do you want to take us through
that was rough.
the blow-by-blows?
So they managed to essentially trick Null into absorbing Rex.
Yeah.
And he has some sort of like
these light grenades,
Yeah,
all woven into him.
these types of grenades woven into him, and the entire time Null is talking Brock down, like basically trying to put him in his place and say like there's no way he could ever stand up against him.
Yep.
Now he's gonna die, and he basically says, "Oh, these symbiotes are now a part of me forever," and he's like, "Those aren't symbiotes, those are a casket."
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing detonates after they've been completely absorbed by Null and Brock is by himself. And so what these things do is they basically tear him up and like force all these different symbiotes that make up Null to kind of separate like simultaneously but temporarily. And in doing that, it allows Venom to reunite with Eddie just long enough for him to grab like what Null is at its core and try to get it into a furnace to basically completely burn and destroy it.
Yeah, this is all going down in like a steel steel factory. So
Yeah.
they chuck it into this thing that's like melting down, molten steel.
Mm-hmm.
And Eddie opens the door, but he can't quite keep it shut.
Yeah. So he decides he needs to hold himself there in order to keep Null in there, and so that Null can be completely destroyed. But now this is the part that was a little bit confusing because Venom couldn't stay there with Eddie. He had to kind of break away, and I couldn't tell if he had separated from him completely or if he got caught up in the flames and was extinguished. Like what
I think they had
there?
separated completely at one point because he was saying we're gonna die.
Yeah.
We're gonna die together, and so he separates from him to try to get him to like go, but Eddie's not going.
Eddie's very
So-
determined, like,
Right,
this is what we're going to do,
Yeah, and so like it's almost like 2 people together saying, "All right, let's go," and the symbiote goes, and then looks back like, "No, you can't do this, Eddie," and so Eddie's just like, "Just stay with me long enough for me to be able to do this, to do this one last act, and then save yourself," basically, and it's just like, wow. Like, you've got this Eddie Brock character who has been struggling, I think, with this whole idea of being a hero, what it means to be heroic, ever since the dawn of the creation of the character, right?
Yep.
He's the a-hole. He's basically the anti-hero of the Spider-Man universe, basically. Can't quite grasp the role that he's supposed to play and be the actual really good guy.
He's tried.
He's
Lord
tried.
knows he's tried.
Yep.
Right. And here he is, like, in doing probably, I can't think of another time throughout the course of his history where he basically has been faced with something like this, where he's basically going to make the ultimate sacrifice for the betterment of humanity.
Yeah.
And he's willing to die.
Yeah.
He's willing to die to stop this thing.
Yeah.
And at all costs. And then at the very end, you basically... it was actually a very sad moment. It made me think of like almost like a husband and wife type of thing, and like a tragedy befalls and one partner loses the other type of thing and is left alone, you know. And it was like one of those moments.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was kind of like, I was a little shook inside when I read that last page, because you just have Eddie, who's obviously like ravaged by the fire that's, you know, just incinerated his body, you know, and he's calling out to his friend, but there's no response. You know, the symbiote's not responding, or if the symbiote's responding, he can't hear, and he's like, I can't hear you, you know, like he's left there basically with this feeling of isolation, you know, and loneliness, like as he's dying, and it's just like, you're like, whoa.
So in the end, you see just like Eddie's kind of burned body, and he's lying in a pile of what we assume to be just the dead Venom symbiote.
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty rough.
Again, comics, deaths don't tend to stick around.
Right.
But this felt like it was so big. The way they wrote it, the emotional gravity of it,
yep,
felt like this is going to be something that continues on. I think this is going to be the status quo for Venom for a little while at least. That we're going to see something different. I think we'll obviously still have Eddie Brock and something, but maybe that spider symbiote's gone for now.
Maybe. Yeah, we don't know. But that is definitely... so we're up to the 6th issue here, and if you haven't read the first 6 issues, I mean, Venom was really... It ended strong before the Legacy renumbering. I mean, they still have the Legacy number, excuse me, before they relaunched to a renumbering of 1, retaining the Legacy numbering under it. It was a very strong story even prior to that 6-issue arc. So it finished up strong, and it actually introduced us to a potential new character, which I believe Ken's going to talk about next.
Right. So what's going to happen next? Now we got Eddie without a symbiote. What's going to go on? It's still going to be, obviously, Venom's not canceled.
Right.
There's still more issues in the works.
Yep.
And what I think might potentially happen is we might see a symbiote that we were introduced in the first Toast.
Yep.
And so going back to the last series before they relaunched, Eddie's symbiote gives birth to this little weird blobby symbiote baby.
Yep.
That's right.
Kind of nasty.
It's in the Nativity storyline.
And basically, Liz Allen's corporation has been keeping this thing in their labs. They've been studying it, watching it develop, but it's still a young entity. It doesn't really know its place. It doesn't really understand its powers. Well, during First Toast, Eddie loses his symbiote. The symbiote's original host, the Kree alien Telkar, absorbs him back in. So Eddie's left defenseless with no way to save his host, and he ends up bonding with the baby, and he becomes this other type of Venom character. Now this symbiote has different powers. Obviously, it wasn't bonded to Spider-Man, so it doesn't have any of the spider powers. It has almost like weird stealthy abilities. Like he can cloak himself. He can detect people that are by him that are cloaked. He can release like chemical pheromones, like aerosol pheromones to like affect people. Like he could make you, he could make you do stuff, or he can make you go to sleep. It's like a lot of mental and emotional manipulation, as opposed to brute strength. So by the end of First Toast, the symbiote basically reconstitutes Telkar's dead body and just takes him on a tour around the cosmos to kind of learn its place and its powers. To me, it seems like this would be a natural way for Eddie to kind of bond with another Venom. So we'll see. I think it's pretty cool stuff going on in Venom world. It's almost like there's a movie coming out or something.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Jeez, I wonder.
It's funny. Big push for seemingly no reason.
Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And what's next on tap here?
guess finally we're gonna review X-Men Black. This is the first. I think it's a 6-issue series.
Is it? Okay.
And it's all going to be, each issue is going to be centered around a different X-villain. So there's going to be one for like Mojo, there's one for Mystique, there's going to be one for Emma Frost, and this is going to be part of the big lead-in into Marvel rebooting the X-Men. So as we know, it seems pretty inevitable that Marvel's going to get the movie rights back to X-Men. Yeah. So this is the perfect time for them to get their X family back in order, as the X-Men's kind of been all over the place. They got the X-Men, the blue team from the past.
Yep.
You have blue, gold. You have a red team with like a resurrected Jean Grey.
Yep.
And there's a lot going on, and X-Men history is pretty convoluted as it is.
And the extermination storyline, of course.
Extermination story's going on, and then they're going to have a disassembled storyline that's going to be coming up, and all of this is basically leading to the relaunch of the flagship Uncanny X-Men title.
Yes.
So we get some lead-in, and I'm assuming that this is setting up basically what is going to bring the X-Men back together.
Yes.
To fight. So we have Magneto.
Lots of exposition in this.
This is a dialogue-heavy story.
Yep.
Also want to mention that this was written by Chris Claremont, who was the writer during the X-Men seminal run during the 70s, when he worked with guys like Dave Cockrum and John Byrne. He did the stories like Days of Future Past. He did the Dark Phoenix saga. Basically,
the best.
Yeah, all the best X-Men stories.
The most prolific.
He was responsible for writing those, so I thought it was excellent that they brought him back to write this Black series. So we have Magneto, and it looks like he's Magneto that doesn't want to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of reluctant to be using his powers, and when he does use his powers, he kind of does it for protection, to protect this girl that was standing up for mutants against like a group of
rednecks.
A bunch of, I was gonna say rabble-rousers, but okay, rednecks. Yeah, they were rednecks.
Let's just be honest, they're rednecks.
They're rednecks.
Because that's always like the main villain in all these comics.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a bunch of rednecks don't know what they're talking about.
They're politically labeling it quite heavily.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was a MAGA hat on one of them.
I think one of them actually calls out liberals.
Yeah,
But to be fair, X-Men have always been a political book.
Yes, it has.
There's always been the allegories between X-Men and certain groups that have been, whether it's race or whatever, gender and sexuality. They've always been a representative of those subcultures, the countercultures.
Yep.
But Magneto uses his powers, and obviously that tips off certain people to the fact that Magneto's back up to his tricks. They launch an attack on him with some Sentinels, and he lets loose in a way that I haven't seen Magneto do in a long time.
I don't think I've ever seen Magneto let loose in this particular manner.
I mean, at one point he actually like breaks someone down. It looks like he deconstitutes them, and then
completely breaks down their entire body to like base elements.
Yeah,
and then completely reconstitutes their body.
Just reforms them.
Which just makes that particular person's commentary at the end a little bit more like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like this guy literally just wiped you from existence and then brought you back.
And he didn't break a sweat doing it.
No, he just did it with like a wave of his hand.
It was a Monty Python Black Knight.
It very much was. Very much was.
There's just molecules there for a second. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call it a draw.
But it was pretty good. It was very interesting.
It was good. I'm excited to see the X-Men world kind of come back to a cohesion under Uncanny.
Yeah.
It seems very. There's too much going on right now in the X-Men world where it's like I'm like, how does the stuff that's happening in Extermination fit in with what's happening with
Well, there's
X-Men
so many
Gold?
books. There's so many books.
Yeah, there's.
I remember, I think I told you about this a few months ago. I was
Yeah.
reading, I ain't gonna name drop, but I was reading a group that prides himself on their knowledge of comic books, and they came up with a list of like the biggest like Marvel fails, and like the very first one was that they were allowing the X-Men to basically go extinct, that they weren't putting out anything new about X-Men. I'm like, what X-Men titles are you talking about?
There's like 4 books on the wall.
I was like, there's Uncanny, there's like 5 different X-Men have their own individual titles.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of
Gold,
team-ups.
Mr. and Mrs.
I was like,
X.
there's as much X-Men as there is
Domino,
of every other title.
Wolverine.
What are you talking about? It's ridiculous. And it'll be nice to see all that kind of come back together.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think it wasn't so much an issue with there being quantity of titles. There wasn't that quality and cohesion of the titles.
Yeah. Right.
It's just really hard, and that's always been something that's always been an issue that the X-Men have had.
Too many universes.
Too much is too popular, I think, also, and just too big of a roster. I mean, we have just these number of mutants went from just being like, hey, there's X-Men, and then like there's the new X-Men, and then like all of a sudden there's like X-Factor, X-Force, and then all of a sudden there's just hundreds of thousands of mutants all over the place.
Yep.
And it's tough to just juggle them. I mean, the mutants alone could be like their own corner of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So hopefully good things will be in store for X-Men fans and mutant kind, and but since we've gone kind of a little dark here, right? We've got the Heroes in Crisis title, Venom, and a story about a X-Men bad guy. So I think that's like the perfect lead into the next segment in our talk, which is spooky Halloween.
Ooh, so spooky.
Embrace the comic darkness within you.
Just dial back a little bit. Dial back there, Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking like a Thriller moment here with that Vincent Price laugh, but I'd like to talk to you guys about like what are your favorite Halloween comic reads, like going back in history. Like, what recommendations can we give our audience for like really good solid titles that might kind of fit the mood of the season?
Okay, I'll give 2. One of them is something that you're probably familiar with already because of the TV show on AMC, Preacher.
Okay.
For those
you all thought he was going to say Walking Dead.
I thought I might have said Walking Dead for a second too. But no.
Preacher.
Yeah, twist.
Preacher. Okay.
What a twist. He said Preacher. For those of you that aren't familiar with Preacher, it's basically a story of angels and demons, and this weird situation where an angel and a demon, I don't know if they necessarily fall in love, but they do the dirty, and they end up spawning this entity called Genesis, and this Genesis is the offspring of both pure good and pure evil. It's basically something that has never been seen before, and it's been extremely feared by God himself. Like, God fears the power of this thing because he doesn't quite understand it. It wasn't part of his creation. It was, well, it gets a bit philosophical anyways.
Right.
But as you can imagine, any story that deals with demons is going to have a lot of horror themes in it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of gruesome things that happen. There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of stuff that deals with the religious aspects and also the spiritual aspects of demons and the devil. So that's probably one of my favorite horror reads.
Excellent. Preacher is is it still on TV right now? Like, are we?
Yeah, I think there are like 3 or 4 seasons into it. I'm not watching the show. The show is definitely its own animal.
Yep.
But the comics are phenomenal.
Garth Ennis, awesome creator. And as a Punisher fan, Garth Ennis wrote some of the most prolific Punisher material.
Yes, and he did it with the same artist. It was Steve Dillon that did a lot of his work.
That's right. God rest his soul.
Yeah, those two are fantastic together. Sometimes you get those creative teams that just know how to work together.
Absolutely.
That's definitely an example of it.
Yep.
The other book that I want to mention is Swamp Thing. Particularly Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, which is considered by many to be the definitive Swamp Thing.
Right.
It deals with his origin story. It deals with his dealings with Arcane, and it is just oh man, it is just a really gruesome. It's a horror book at its core, but at the same time, it has other elements. The last issue is basically a love story between Swamp Thing and his girlfriend Abigail, and it's like literally one of the most beautiful things I've ever written. It's like poetic, man.
Beauty and the Beast.
It's weird. It's kind of it was crazy stuff. They were talking, so they're trying to figure out how to like consummate, because obviously he's a swamp monster. So how's this woman going to consummate with the swamp monster?
I don't want to think about that.
Well, what he does is he grows these fruit.
Is she a vegetarian?
A vegetarian.
So yeah, fruit.
So he buds these fruits, and she eats them. And by eating it, she taps into the green, which is like, you know, basically the spirit of nature. And she's able to like experience the world the way Swamp Thing does. So like, you know, she's tapped into the very core of nature, and she's like, you know, she can feel the grass and the water and the animals inside of it, and like in that that oneness with nature, she joins with Swamp Thing, and it's gorgeous, man. It's like just amazing stuff. So, but besides that, between the beginning and that point, there's a ton of messed up stuff that happens. Like a lot of demon possession. A whole town gets possessed. They get turned into zombies. It's pretty insane stuff.
Wow.
That sounds pretty cool.
It's great.
I have to go back and read some of those Alan Moore specials.
I have the trade. I'll let you borrow it.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's like one of my favorite things to read.
This is my Halloween reading.
I would highly recommend it for everyone.
All right, excellent.
My pick is, I'm going to go back to, if you've watched videos before, especially our pop culture videos, I quite often bring up Stephen King stuff. And I got to say that way back when, in the 80s, Stephen King got together with the incredibly talented Bernie Wrightson.
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. To write Creepshow.
Yep.
An actual graphic novel featuring awesome Stephen King stories and beautifully horrific artwork from the great Bernie Wrightson. It was awesome. And I even had, at one point, and this is going to kill me to share this, but I had a copy that was signed by Bernie Wrightson.
Oh, no
and
way.
it got destroyed in a flood.
Oh.
And it was just, pains me to even think about. But
paper and water don't mix.
They do not. They do not. But the book really kind of takes its cues from a lot of the old 1970s horror comics. You know, the ones that come to mind, especially in the DC, on the DC side, are Ghosts, and was it House of
Secrets?
House of Secrets, yes.
Which is where Swamp Thing was first originally.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I always used to get a kick out of reading those, and every time like I get a collection of comic books, and I, you know, from a customer or whatever, I go through, I dig through, and I see if there are any of those in there,
Nice.
and I take them home right away, and I like read them. It's my bedtime reading, you know. But you get like that creepy narrator character.
Yeah, like the Crypt Creeper from Tales from the Crypt.
Exactly, that type of thing. And you know, introducing you to this like this tale of warning, you know, and there's a lesson to be learned here, you know. Usually, you know, talking about the greed of people leading to their demise,
or like infidelity,
you know,
and stuff,
infidelity, all these like things, you know, like don't embrace the deadly sins because you will pay the price, you know, and it in Creepshow had that feel to it as well. It kind of took its cues from that, and I don't know if you've actually read it or seen the movie version of Creepshow, you know, but
I read it. Like the stories themselves weren't overly scary. Like they're very pulp horror, right? They're kind of just like they're a little bit cheesy. They played a lot into like, you know, the characters being certain stereotypes.
Yep.
And they usually had kind of just like a weird twist ending.
Yep.
Like There's the one about the was it like the box that was under the stairs?
Yeah, with the creature in it.
Yeah, with the creature that was in it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
then like at the end, like this guy's working at, I don't know, like a lab or something.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, don't look in this box under the stairs. And then sure enough, after a while, curiosity gets the best of him.
That's right.
He looks in the box and like, you know, there's some crazy monster in there that
Yep.
like just like eats him or
Parandora's
something.
box. You don't open it because it will kill you. Funny little kind of a link into the Swamp Thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to divert into the movie world, but there's a link there between Swamp Thing and Creepshow, and that's Adrienne Barbeau was in that very story in the movie, and she also plays the love interest, Swamp Thing's love interest,
Abigail. Yep.
in the movie version
Oh, no
of
kidding.
Swamp Thing. Yeah.
And Bernie Wrightson, creator of Swamp Thing. Well, one of the creators of Swamp Thing.
One of the creators of Swamp Thing. So yeah, it seems like we've come full circle here with a couple of aspects of this. But
And also, I know why you enjoy the narrator so much. The guy is literally just puns every line. Every line. It's just these terrible horror puns.
you know, I am guilty of that. I do. I mean, there's a reason why the production staff calls me the pun-isher in the credits.
There's a reason why there's a pun jar in the store.
We do have a friend of the store though who is worse, has probably even more guilty than I am of it though. Don't you think? Brandon, are you out there watching?
See, I don't know. Brandon takes time and energy and puts it towards crafting these puns. He doesn't really come up with them on the fly like you do. Like,
I see.
and that's why they hit well, and they're funny, and you can accept it because
Did
it's
you say
kind
that
of.
Chris's aren't?
So
I'm just like an old dad. Basically, I'm old dad pun man. Okay, I gotcha. It's fair. So yeah, Creepshow is definitely something to look for. You should definitely go out and check that out if you like that old pulpy horror. Fun stuff, and a great movie to boot, by the way. What's your pick?
So as you guys know, I've only been in the comic world for about 2 years now, so I haven't had the grand archive of comics to select from that you have, and I tend to gear myself towards more superhero-related comics. Only very recently started getting into indies, so that's where the majority of my horror knowledge would come from. So I do want to make special mention of Infidel, which came out a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I believe we covered it in one of our shows.
Yeah, yep, we did. And we were only, I think, 3 or 4 issues in, and it's kind of gone dark. Not in like the sense that it is a dark book, but in the sense
It is
that
a dark book.
it is,
Yeah.
very much is. But at the same time, like, it's just kind of gone off.
Yeah, we haven't seen a
haven't
new
seen
issue from Infidel. I mean, the first 3 issues came out on time. There was then like rumors broke that it was optioned for a movie deal, and then I don't think we saw another issue after that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It is an excellent dark psychological piece about dealing with the traumas that come with being a Muslim
Being
in
Muslim.
America. And well, I think specifically in America right now, it deals with a young woman. If you haven't seen the show that we talk about at the first issue, it deals with a young woman who is she's engaged with a young American man, and his mother has some prejudices that she's trying to put aside, but she can still kind of see that they're there. And there's a dark entity that follows her that kind of corrupts her life, and it's really hard to explain because there's a lot of it that you're not sure if it's just in her head or if this entity is real. This thing is really doing stuff until it starts affecting other people as well. And it's a great piece. I'm hoping that we're going to see I think it was supposed to be a 6-issue run, if I remember correctly, and I'm excited to see how it's going to conclude. And I honestly, I think it would be an awesome film if they did it properly.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a good blend of pure horror and then also social commentary. And I honestly think that some of the best horror has aspects of social commentary. Like I think the Day of the Dead had like social commentary based on like mass consumerism, and you know, I think that's makes it more relevant. Makes it seem like more just like horror for the sake of scares and violence,
Right.
when there's actually like, you know, a message behind it. That's a great pick.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely one that I personally, I mean, I'm dating a Palestinian girl who's also Muslim, and so that takes part in our relationship as well.
Yeah.
Not that my mom loves her, like there's no issues there, but it's still the presence of it, and so it's very relatable to anyone finds himself in that kind of situation where you're either in a relationship with somebody who is Muslim, or you yourself are a Muslim trying to survive in a world that's very anti-Muslim right now. But it's a very good horror piece. And then because there are so many of them, and it's been ongoing for a long time, I know, Chris, you had made mention earlier that this was one of your favorites as well. I'm a huge fan of the Alien series. I've picked up the majority of the issues that have come out since I started reading comics, and I've even gone back into a couple old ones. They always bring a strong horror element to them. They dive very deeply into different, like, you know, military style writing. Some of it's kind of science fiction-y. Well, obviously it's all science fiction, but some of it will gear towards the science a little bit more. But in the background, that getting stalked and getting, you know, taken out by these creatures that are seemingly unbeatable, it's always present. It's always there. You'll get into an issue and, oh, look, it's a new team. They end up on this planet, they end up on this ship, and they're just doing some routine work, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to do this project, and then out of nowhere, people start dying.
And they're dead.
Left and right. It's the same story, and it works every single time, and they build upon this awesome universe. I personally love the Xenomorphs. They are my babies, and
they're so well designed. I mean, is there a better designed like horror?
They're brilliant. Although I do have to say, not to get too pop culture, but I did recently watch a little video about the aliens from A Quiet Place versus Xenomorphs, and I was like, oh, that was very interesting. We should talk about that some other time.
Maybe that can be next.
But they might have a little bit of competition, the Xenomorphs. Oh yeah, for sure.
So Tyler's fascination with the Xenomorphs actually freaked out his friend Ben and myself enough that we said that if Xenomorphs ever came down to Earth and invaded, that the first person we would eliminate would be Tyler from this, because he would conspire with the Xenomorphs to kill.
He could be our ambassador.
Oh yeah.
he could communicate with them.
Yeah, he basically announced that he would side with the Xenomorphs against the humans.
Yeah.
So
I, for one, welcome our mutant overlords.
We should all assimilate and join the horde.
There's something. I think aliens. There's something about that idea of being like isolated in space. In this, like, you know, for lack of a better word, an alien environment, and to just be stalked by
that was
this.
The catchphrase.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. That's how they kicked it off.
Just they're isolated on their own. They know no backups coming. It's just them, and they have no idea what they're up against.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, little known fact actually is that the first comic I ever read, I didn't have a comic store in my town. It was in college that I read my first comic book. So my dad, who was he was a claims adjuster, brought me a crap load of comic books and said, "Do you want these? My company doesn't want them. They were written off as damage at someone's house." And I was like, okay, fine, I'll take them, and I pull out,
the first hit's
free. Exactly, and I start going through, and all of a sudden I find these Dark Horse comics, Aliens issues, and I'm like, I'm interested in that. I love the movies. I love Alien and Aliens. Those movies are great. So I started reading those. That's the first comic I ever read, was a Dark Horse Aliens book.
That's awesome.
And I was hooked on comics. That was my lead-in. That was my... my initial drug.
And that was a
that
great.
got me hooked.
That was a great
So,
series to get in on because those Dark Horse Alien series were excellent.
Yeah,
the
they were.
artwork were just like so
gritty.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? They just fit
Yes.
the horror genre just perfectly.
Yep. Great stuff. So I'm right there with you. That's a wonderful world for scares.
All right, well,
you know?
this not
So-
comic related, but like favorite Aliens movie.
Favorite Aliens movie? I mean, so I look at, I don't like to judge Alien versus Aliens, all right? Because to me, they're two different movies. They're one is
movies.
they're two different styles of movie.
Oh, definitely.
You know, like the original Alien to me is a straight up horror film.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Aliens is more like a action movie, right?
Aliens is more of an action,
In the
you know,
vein of
military
like Predator kind of like film.
Absolutely.
It's all romantic
And-
comedy to me.
Disturbing. Anyway.
I guess it is
But-
kind of horror because in the end the aliens do get killed, which is sad for me.
Oh.
But
Then,
that queen comes out and I'm like, oh my god, she's beautiful.
We're getting notes over here.
But Alien Covenant was also a fantastic movie too, and it got criminally underviewed. But no, I'm gonna have to go Aliens. Aliens is probably my favorite of the series.
I'm gonna go with Alien.
I'm gonna go with Aliens as well.
Okay.
Just the cast. The cast was amazing.
No one's gonna go with the Spaceballs. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
What did he eat?
I was gonna
He had
go.
what do you have? The soup of the day?
Yeah.
That's what I had.
Check, please.
Well, that's all for our comic shop talk for this month. But of course, we'll be back next month, and hopefully, we'll see you at the pop culture talk video. Thanks everyone for watching.
Ha 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 ha!